Hey there, campers. Welcome back to another Disney's Lorcana trading card game video here on Camp Legend. We have another Shimmering Skies tier list. Of course, we are super excited for the set to drop. We're already talking about some decks that we want to be trying out. I'm pretty sure we were going to be able to put out a new deck for each of the color combinations. We're going to put a video for that together, hopefully sometime next week. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Go ahead and follow the channel, subscribe and all that good stuff so that you can see it when it comes out. But for this video, we are taking on the new locations. Gibby and I are both big fans of the location card type, and since they've been introduced into the Inklands, there's been a weird up and down of locations where we had some really cracked locations and then some really not cracked locations from Ursula's Return. So we are here to evaluate with a stern eye these new locations here in Shimmering Skies. So with no further ado, let me jump over there. And Gibby, I'm going to pass this very first one over for you to introduce and give me your impressions. So we're going to go ahead and start out with the new Pride Lands. So I think the other one was it Pride Lands, and then
it was Pride Lands, Pride Rock, wasn't it?
Pride Rock, and I think this is a little bit different.
Yes, this one is different indeed. Let me put on my twitching stern eye and we'll evaluate Pride Lands Jungle Oasis. While you have 3 or more characters here, you may banish this location to play a character from your discard for free. So already a little bit higher on the higher end expensive, being a 3-cost location, and it does cost 2 to move over there. Decent willpower. I do think the storm in which is going to require this card to be useful, of you having 3 characters there, it living, and you having had enough ink to play the characters and then move them all there and have something relevant that was worth all of that trouble to bring out of your discard, and now you've lost the location. I don't see it. I think this is binder fodder.
So interesting you say that. I would like to petition for rogue deck potential. After playing the Location Blitz Amber Ruby deck, I played it in a set championship. I bubbled out of top 8, had a winning record with it. There's some cool stuff that goes on in that deck, which plays some otherwise seemingly bad locations in the form of Tiana's Palace and the Underworld, right? I think that this could be an upgrade on the Underworld. I think it also could be seen as an upgrade on Tiana's Palace if you're willing to sort of split the uninkable-inkable counts, right? The other thing that's interesting about this is the 8 defense on turn 3, from my experience with Tiana's Palace, is actually pretty formidable. And it does collect 1 lore. So the situations where you try to get everything over to get its power, it probably doesn't happen a lot. But it's still collecting a lore.
It just getting a lore and being like a threat of you doing it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. If you're, and that's going to be a theme with a lot of these location decks, is to make most of the locations work. If they're going to work, is going to require you to lean heavily into locations.
Yeah.
So you're going to be playing cards like Tuk Tuk. You're going to be playing cards like Magic Carpet, or Jim Hawkins, things that allow you to, or even John Silver that collects lore and resistance for every location you have. Those kinds of cards are going to be really relevant when evaluating the how good certain locations are, for sure.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll just throw out on this is that this is not getting 3 people there is not as hard as it seems if you're playing the Jim Hawkins and Tuk Tuks. It was pretty easy for me to get 3 or even 4 characters in that deck on location. Once Jim was able to bring them in, and then obviously Tuk Tuk moves 2 over right away. So it's possible, hard, but it's really all I think about the lore that you're collecting, and there's some nice upside. I think it's a really cool card. So let's put it in rogue deck potential.
Sure.
Let's talk Rapunzel's Tower.
Rapunzel's Tower, secluded prison. It's a scary world out there, is the text on it. Characters get +3 defense while here. Unlike our prior Pride lands, this does not collect lore, and that's been my biggest criticism for a lot of locations, is if a location doesn't collect any lore each turn, I think it's really tough to justify. We did see last meta in Ursula's Return the usefulness of a hidden cove in Emerald that gave one attack and one defense, and I loved that card. This is very similar, and I do like that it only costs 1 to move something there. I think if anything, I think I'm going to go niche meta usage. I think you and I are headed in the same direction. I think one of the best parts about this card is that because it doesn't cost a lot to play, you can drop, like, your opponent is evaluating. I think most of the time your opponent's evaluating, like, okay, they probably don't have a rush unit or something like that, so they're not going to live this trade. And you drop Rapunzel's tower, move a unit that's already on board to this location, and then challenge it, and it lives. And I don't think your opponent is going to be ready for that a lot of times. So I do think there is going to be, you could splash a couple of these in your deck if you have a couple extra slots, and it'll find some use.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it does not solve for ruby removal, but it massively solves for steel removal. Massively. Yeah. This is an anti-steal card. I think we're going to see it in some deck at some point. Yes, it costs, basically think about it as a hidden cove that is all in on the defense, and it's only costs 1 more. It's also inkable. It's only 1 to move people over, right? So, like, I really am pretty excited about this card as a tech option. So
splash.
Yeah. So let's talk Elsa's Ice Palace, buddy. I'll start this one off. So Elsa's Ice Palace, I think, is one of the most interesting locations we have yet to receive. Place of Solitude. It costs 3. It's uninkable. Ouch, right? But when you play this location, you choose an exerted character. And while this location is in play, that character can't ready at the start of their turn. You are guaranteeing at least 1 turn of a character not being able to ready. Think of this as like a spell or an action that keeps on giving, right? Yes, it's overpriced compared to other actions that say something can't ready, right? But it also has a chance to collect you a lore. It also has a chance to not be responded to and keep something down for multiple turns. I'm really, really excited about this card, and I've heard rumors of other people in the community also excited about this card. To me, I don't want to overhype it, but to me, I can see this card being at least meta relevant, if not meta defining, in a deck that we have yet to perceive of.
It's hard for me to perceive a location as meta defining that isn't Queen's Castle.
Yeah,
right now.
I mean, Queen's Castle. I would argue Hidden Cove is a meta defining card, or was in this last set.
I would have put it as personally would have put it as meta relevant and not meta defining. But Elsa's Ice Palace, I agree, is a great card. I don't think you'd have any problem slotting this in. I think it is overwhelmingly applicable.
Yes.
Regardless of your opponent's deck. And I think that it's one of the things that makes meta relevant cards meta relevant, is just what are the amount of situations in which this card gains you the value, and what it's intending to do is what gives you a significant advantage. And I just it's hard to put outside of just, it's a pretty straightforward card that does exactly what it says it's going to do. It's going to exert a character, and what if you play 2 Elsa's Ice Palace? Like, you could continue to drop these and just freeze your entire opponent's board. You're most likely freezing something that is cheaper, or if you like, this is a great top deck.
Yeah, it's pretty well. It is a great top deck. It's not going to get you a ton of usage if your opponent has a big board already, but it will at least deny 1 quester for 1 turn, and then force another thing to be used to kill this. So it will basically, this card will slow your opponent down by at least 2 characters, because they will either they will not get the value off of the character you target with this, and then they will have to remove this with presumably another character or another action that they could be using on questing or developing something else, right? So yes, the worst thing I think this could see would be like a Mim Fox, right? This doesn't want to see Mim Fox. But even then, think about it this way. If you exert something of theirs and then they are forced to, not get value out of it and just bounce it. I mean, even the situation I can see regularly coming up would be there's a rabbit on the board, it's exerted. You play this, you call out the rabbit, and then because it's the only thing that they have, and this is really your only play, and then they bounce the rabbit and play a fox and kill this. Well, okay, yes, not great. They got a card, but they still didn't sing anything with that rabbit. They didn't quest with that rabbit. I mean, you're at least getting an undetermined amount of lore negated from your opponent and forcing them to do something about this immediately. Otherwise, you will start collecting lore and you will stall cards for multiple turns. I actually think this is just going to be one of those cards that people are going to get really frustrated with.
Yeah, this is a card where people are going to try to set up combos. Especially, I think this is going to be a really good card against the Sapphire decks as well. Mm-hmm. Where Sapphire decks are going to try to combo either singing songs for ramp or like a one jump ahead or something like that.
Yeah.
Or trying to
play
use
this like
units.
On a Flaversham?
Yeah.
Whoa.
You just exert it and kill it. Or keep it exerted so it can't keep using the ability. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is going to be a good card against majority of the field. There are some better ways, as you've highlighted, to deal with it, but I do think this card will see play.
All right, let's talk about the library. So this is the other Amethyst location, a gift for Bell, 3 cost, inkable, 8 defense, and quests for 1 each turn. It only costs 1 to move there. This says whenever a character is banished while here, you may draw a card. I have a conspiracy theory, Gibby. Would you like to hear my conspiracy theory?
Yes, I do.
This is a Queen's Castle substitute so that they can ban Queen's Castle.
I agree. I 100% agree. I told somebody else that exact same theory, is that they're either going to ban or they are going to nerf Queen's Castle, and this is a substitute for it. Because it's one cost cheaper, but it gets 1 less lore.
Yep.
And you get the card out of it. You get the cards out of it, and it's more in your control. But you have to be more intentional about it. Like meta relevant for sure. For me, meta relevant. I at least meta relevant.
Yeah. I mean, the weird thing about this is that it's competing with Queen's Castle, but you could play both. That's a crazy thing. Bro, Jim Hawkins with Queen's Castle and with the library in your deck, bro. I'm playing that deck. I'm 100% playing that deck.
So do this. So you play Jim Hawkins and bring out the castle, and then you force them to have an answer while Jim Hawkins and anybody else is there to get the cards, and then you drop the library, and Hawkins moves there immediately.
Yeah.
Because anytime you play a new location, Hawkins has the ability to move there.
Oh, I thought that was only on play.
I think it's a static ability, unless I'm wrong.
Oh, man, that's just weird. Oh, man, if we're... One of us is going to look real stupid here because I played this card.
I was like, I need to look it up.
No. Jim Hawkins.
I think anytime you play a new location, you can move him there.
Oh, boy. Yes, you're right, bro. I've been playing this card, and I didn't know that.
So you drop the castle. He goes there. You force him to deal with castle.
Yes.
And even if they start hitting castle, then you say, okay, buy castle, get your 2 lore. If they don't deal with you, you play library, drag Hawkins over there, and you can even challenge something immediately that just hit the castle and draw a card off of it. And now you've protected your library and your castle.
Just for the sake of a cool looking tier list, I want to put this in meta defining.
I'm fine. I'm fine with that.
I want to put this in meta defining because one, if the castle gets banned, this will be meta defining. 2, even with the castle existing, people are already playing Jim Hawkins builds and playing RLS Legacy. I don't see why you don't just also slot this in. You can play anything on 1 or 2 and then just jam this. I like it.
Because the turn 3 is more like a setup or like a bounce kind of turn.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
like just play more aggressive 1-drop and 2-drops that could trend up trading for something if you dropped a libraries in the mid turns, or like if you played the library and then bounced a fox in on 4 and moved the fox to the library to then draw a card. Like you're getting the value overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
This is going to be a great location. I'm sold.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about Sherwood Forest, Gibby. Take it away.
Lot of conversation around Sherwood Forest.
Yes.
It's a 2-cost, 7 willpower that costs 2 to move something there, and it does not gain any static lore. So already a little bit of a from me, but we'll see what the effect is. Characters gain ward and the ability of you can exert it for 1 ink to deal 2 damage to chosen damaged character while here. All right. Now, I think this card is going to be meta relevant.
Well, and your character's named Robin may move here for free. You missed that part.
Oh, yeah, I did miss that as the first ability. My apologies. Your character's named Robin Hood may move here for free. Now, I don't want to say this is going to be meta defining, but what this is going, and you do have lots of Robin Hood options, which is
really good ones. Yeah,
like not just like, oh, I'm going to jam a bunch of cards in my deck that say Robin Hood, and it's going to be suboptimal because the Robin Hoods aren't good. Most of the Robin Hoods are pretty good. And even when you shift in a Robin Hood, it does count as playing a new Robin Hood too, but that's not really relevant to this card. Anyway, the part about this card that is going to require a bit of intentional deck building is that it deals damage to a chosen damaged character. Right. We've already seen plenty of cards that deal damage to damaged characters that in a vacuum are pretty good cards. It's dealing damage to undamaged characters. It is usually the biggest barrier to making cards like these work. I mean, Helga Sinclair is a fantastic card, but she has to have a damaged character to be able to deal damage to it. Same thing with the Queen of Hearts. Actually, is a pretty aggressive quester in Emerald, but has to deal damage to a damaged character. The fact that this is specifically calling out that it is rather more effective with Robin Hoods, I think will be relevant because you will be able to play Robin Hood's bow in this deck and it be very impactful. Yeah. You can then use Robin Hood's bow, move a Robin Hood to this location for free. If you have the additional ink still available, deal 2 additional damage to it. I can see it being like niche. It's almost got to be niche because this is going to be a specific, like a Robin Hood deck or like a damage build deck.
Yeah, but do you think that, and again, this is where, and we went through this in the legendary tier list. So if you've seen that video, you know how we're qualifying these and some of the nuance there. Go check out that video. I think we did a pretty interesting rundown of those. But the difference here between niche meta usage is it is a tech card or an option card in an established good deck, right? Not necessarily an established good deck right now, but like in a meta deck that is like considered, A, B tier or better in a meta tier list. Like we're talking like Red Fossa or up, right? Does it have a niche role in that, or is it a card that is a defining part of a C tier or lower meta deck? Like, something that, like for instance, the whole location blitz deck, very fun. That's a C tier deck, right? So like the cards that make that work would be rogue deck potential cards, right? So do you think this Robin Hood deck that you're conceiving of will be a good deck?
I think the ping damage and deal additional damage to damage or non-damage characters, there's a lot of additional support that's come out in Shimmering Skies. I do think it could be like a B tier deck. I'm really torn between if that deck isn't good enough, then it's rogue. I think you could run, it's inkable, so you could run like 3-4 copies of this. I don't know. I'm torn between B and C. So you make the final call here. Where are we going?
I'm not a believer in the Robin Hood package. I'm a believer in the existing 1 and 5 drop shift combo, right? But I'm not a believer that there is enough room for all of the Robins that are going to need to go in this, and all of the uninkables that you need to start triggering the things that require things to be damaged. I'm struggling with that. I'll be fully honest. So like, I'm happy to eat my words, but for now, this feels like a rogue deck. Again, rogue decks can win. The purple Fossa deck won the first championship, first Disney Lorcana challenge, right? That was a rogue deck. So rogue decks can win, but I don't believe this will be a staple in an existing deck. And I don't believe it's good enough to be a splash card in a ping deck, because I just don't. I'm struggling to see ping decks as a reality right now. But let's move on. Let's talk about Tropical Rainforest, the Jaguar's lair. This is a 3-cost inkable, 1 to move someone there, but I don't think that's very relevant because it has 6 defense, 1 questing, and a static ability, which is nice because we've seen a lot of locations, especially last set, that required somebody to be standing on it for the effect to be turned on. That is not the case here. Okay, this says opposing damaged characters gain reckless. I've heard a lot of people buzzing about this. I think this is the biggest bait card in the set. I think this is a massive bait card because unlike Elsa's Ice Palace, you cannot guarantee that a damaged character at the start of the turn won't get to quest. Because if they blow this up, the effect turns off, and now all of a sudden they can quest. It's got 6 defense, so it's dying to Maui. If you have a big Tamatoa down, and and it's got a damage counter on it, and you play this tropical rainforest, saying like, "Oh, Tamatoa can't quest. Hee, I got him." Well, sorry to tell you, Maui's going to come down, clear the rainforest, and then Tamatoa's going to quest, and you're gonna be like, "Why did I pay 3 for this?" So, I think this is bait. I think it is binder fodder. You could maybe, Gibby, you have a different take, and you can convince me up to C tier, but I will go no higher than C tier.
You won't get any argument from me. I think this card is very much binder fodder. It's basically the scenario does delaying your opponent by a full turn at maximum, because for all of the scenarios you just laid out, does that even, it's not even a guarantee you get that if they can clear it for any of the hard location removal tools that exist out there, or just rush units. Can they clear it on the opposing turn? Probably. Yeah. So it's, you stall them by a half a turn, and that's not going to be relevant enough for 3 ink.
Right. Yeah, that's where I'm at too. Okay, well, sweet. Let's move on to Radigan's Party, another classic that I had on VHS, The Great Mouse Detective. Big fan of these more niche movies.
I need to go back and watch that movie again. I don't remember a whole lot from it.
It's actually pretty cool, and it's even got some some kind of spooky moments in it. So, well, anyways, Gibby, let's run through Radigan's Party. Tell me, what are your thoughts on this?
Radigan's Party, 2-cost inkable, 1 to move it there, and 7 willpower. While you have a damaged character here, this location gets +2 lore. I kind of like it.
Yeah, same.
I mean, you don't get it out the gate unless you're playing it on turn 3, and then you already have a damaged character out. But there's several low drop characters on 1 and 2 that already do that. That like already
they come in damaged.
They come in damaged or come in hurt. I think this is a great location. And then even if like they try to hit it, they're probably not clearing it on low turns at 7 willpower. And if you play something like, either something that you've healed up, like on your own turn 3 or turn 4 with like oh goodness, the Madrigal that they just came out with.
Yeah, Julieta.
If you heal it up with a Julieta, or you heal it with Rapunzel, to then be able to challenge, and look, you're damaged again, and you're still at the location. Yes. You still got it turned on. Like you can work activating this effect. Teeth and Ambitions, you can work on activating this effect. You've got a lot of different ways to make sure Radigan's Party goes off. I think this is going to be actually very, very good.
Now, do you think this is a new rogue deck that fits this in? Or do you think that this can be teched into a deck that is already incentivized into running the Mulan on one and the Gothel on two, something like a Red Fossa, or maybe even a Ruby deck that is just saying, hey, I'm leaning into the value trading with super goofs and stuff like that. Let me get a quick, easy location, the equivalent of a Queen's Castle. Like, what do you think? I don't think this is meta defining. I think we can agree
No.
there. I'm struggling to see this as a meta relevant card, though. If you were to tell me it was, I might believe you. If you were to say, come from the future and say, in 6 months, Radigan's Party is in a top tier deck, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. I'd love to see it. Right. But I'm thinking it's more like BC. Where do you land on that?
I'm going to go C. I
Okay.
think this is going to be a rogue deck. I think the deck that will make this the most use of this is, and we've seen some additional support for this archetyping Shimmering Skies, is the damage movement kind of
Yeah.
decks.
Mm-hmm.
Within Ruby and Amethyst, I think is the major place that I see this happening.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a great 2-drop to then be able to move a specific amount of damage. Like if you play Mother Gothel, or you play even Mulan on one, and then you play the Bell on turn 3 and move a damage off of it. Well, it's still got a damage on there,
Yeah.
and Radigan still triggers. Like there's the ability to count the amount of damage you're moving, and this still work very well. Or even like a Red Fossa deck that works on healing to gain advantage off of the damage. I do think that this will be like a BC deck that will include several of Radigan's party. Especially as you start to play into the late game and your cards have bigger stats and bigger willpower pools.
Yeah.
I think it'll be relevant in several aspects. It won't just be like narrowed down to one deck, but I don't see any of those decks being like the top of the meta.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's dig into the most interesting location in this entire set, in my opinion. Maybe not the best, but the most interesting. Sugar Rush Speedway. I freaking love Wreck-It Ralph.
I do too.
Gibby, I'm gonna. So here's the thing. I've been trying to work ahead on some decks that I want to play early on in the metagame, and my struggle is I really want to play this card. How do I play it? Because it's kind of complicated, right? Like it's kind of got some like moving parts, no pun intended, where you're like, how do I capitalize off of this obviously decent ability? We're talking about, of course, the one cost uninkable, tough location, 5 willpower, 0 to move there, which is important because what it lets you do is damage one of your characters and exert them to move them to another location for free. So it allows you to get units onto other locations that are hard to get onto, right? And more importantly, it gives you a location to move to for free for cards that give you payoffs for moving to locations, right? So if you have any card that's like, whenever you move to a location, X happens, you will get that for free, assuming you have the Sugar Rush Speedway out. So that has some obvious synergy with a couple of the Speed Racer, Sugar Rush racers, right? There is obviously some weird combo potential. Like, whoa, what if I jump somebody onto the wall or Kuzco's palace or whatever? I'm just...
Or did a damage to somebody and moved them to Radigan's party that we just talked about.
Or move them to Radigan's party, right? So like this, the combo potential exists. Can one of these combos be good enough? Is where I'm struggling.
I am leaning towards no.
And I know that was hard for you, bud.
It is, because I do really love the locations. I think this being uninkable is the backbreaker.
Yeah.
For me, that makes this not feasible. Because you having to get, and not unless you committed to playing Sugar Rush later in the game, like in the mid game, and whatever location you were moving it to, like if you had a 1-drop, a 2-drop, and a 3-drop out, or maybe even a 4-drop or something like that. And on turn 5, you dropped, I don't know, you dropped Queen's Castle and Sugar Rush together, Sugar Rush Speedway together. You moved all of your locations to Sugar Rush Speedway.
All of your characters.
Yeah, all of your characters to Sugar Rush Speedway for free. You use that to exert them all to then bring them to Queen's Castle for free. Okay, great. They're exerted. They're probably going to get removed. Like,
Yeah.
there are a couple locations where it says when you have someone exerted, like you said, like the wall, like your other locations can't be attacked. And that's maybe the only place I see Sugar Rush Speedway being that good. Some of the new racers gain lore, get other abilities. Like I think Vanellope or Taffeta, one of the two, gets lore for every time they move, they get lore every time they move to a location. So like that combos with Sugar Rush Speedway, but I was waiting to see what kind of other support, because they were revealed so early on, we were going to get for the racers. And it might be in the future we get something strong enough that works with Sugar Rush Speedway. I just don't think it's now. Now, if this location said move to Sugar Rush, like just deal a damage if you're at Sugar Rush Speedway, move it to location.
Yeah.
Then you could start comboing with something like Bell's.
Yeah.
Like Bell's Tower, and start challenging things and drawing cards off of them. But because you have to exert. Yes. But because you have to exert. Okay. If they challenge you back to kill you while you're at or to banish you while you're at the Bell's library.
Right.
Then okay, you draw the cards off of it, but is it worth it? I don't know.
There's some cool stuff. I mean, I think you could look at like Tiana's Palace or RLS Legacy as locations where, like, if I damage something, move it there, exert it, then they're protected. They won't get challenged, right? That's just a lot of moving parts. I agree. I think this is rogue deck potential, but man, would I love if somebody breaks the code on this and figures out. And figures out a meta relevant deck. I will be maining Sugar Rush Speedway all season if they do. I love it.
A card that this does combo with really well is from 2 or 3 sets ago, the John Silver.
Yeah,
because John Silver will gain resist because this location exists and any other locations. So you exert and deal the damage to it, and it won't actually take the damage.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tough thing with that is that, like, this then competes probably with, like, the Jolly Roger in terms of, like, first off, if you were going to play John Silver, the Jolly Roger lets you get value out of him on that same turn, right? You rush him, he has a resist, you potentially kill something and live it. Sugar Rush Speedway, you can't use it on John Silver. You can move John Silver there on your first turn, right? But then, like, you'd rather quest with him probably than, like, exert him to move to another spot. So it's weird. I think we got it in the right spot at rogue deck potential, right? If there's a deck with Sugar Rush Speedway, and it's going to be built around Sugar Rush Speedway. There's not going to be a splashing of Sugar Rush Speedway in another deck. Like, it's going to be built around it.
There's going to be a really good opener combo that you drop on, like 1, 2, 3.
It's going to be like Bucky.
That Sugar Rush Speedway is just going to be really good with, and it's going to be okay. Can you keep up?
Toss everything to mulligan for Sugar Rush Speedway.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Merlin's Cottage. This is a very simple, very, very simple location in Sapphire. It costs 1. It's inkable. Check. 7 willpower. Very nice. And it does not collect lore because it is sort of a game-altering effect in that each player must play with the top card of their deck face up. I'm going to start by telling you where I think it goes and then let you argue with me.
Okay.
I think it goes in niche meta usage. There is enough value in knowing what's coming from your opponent, in potentially having something that capitalizes off locations in a more aggressive deck. There are more cards than ever that do things off of the top card of your deck, right? Flip, Mufasa. What am I going to hit off of Mufasa? Boy, would that be nice to know, right? And there's a few more cards added in the set that do things off of, if the top card of your deck is, the same name as the card that you shuffled in, play it for free or whatever. You've got, plenty of cards that look at the top X cards of your deck. I mean, it gives you some nice information if you are playing a deck that rewards you for that. And it gives you information about your opponent in the process. I also just don't know when anybody's going to bother to clear this thing, right? Like, people are just going to let it live, I think. So I think that this will be popped into a couple decks, probably control decks, where somebody's going to say, you know what? I used to play Nowhere to Hide?
Nowhere to Hide. This is the exact comparison I was going to go with.
Yeah.
Where there was a time where there was just a couple extra flex slots in a deck that they were like, what could I benefit from? Oh, knowing my opponent's hand, more information seems relevant. I really don't have anything else this deck needs to really pop off, and what I need to mitigate is downside of me running it, finding an uninkable that I can't play. So let's just give me better intel.
Right
now, the card pool has almost doubled, if not more, from the time that Nowhere to Hide was last played and relevant as a niche inclusion. So I can easily see a world, and I'm leaning towards this, where this card just gets bubbled out as just not worth it.
Possibly. Right.
That's where I'm leaning. But if it does, I think we are correctly putting it in niche meta usage. Like, there's enough establishment in Sapphire. Like, this kind of fits the vibe of a ramp deck wanting to know and plan and not just brick. Like, do I play this card? Do I play this card? Okay, I know what I'm going to draw next turn, and that might matter what I play.
Well, and also the thing is like, we have to envision a world, right, where a blue deck isn't just items, right? And I think we are get closer to that than ever with this set, where we will see blue decks. I'm especially thinking Blurple. Now, could Blurple turn into yet another dime color? Possibly. I don't think so, because I think that you play Blurple not for the dime, but for, the other combination of things, especially Merlins, right? So in a situation like that, you're looking at playing cards on turn one that do things like develop your brain, that do things like Nowhere to Hide. Maybe there's a deck that, hey, it's Blurple. We have so much card draw already. Do we really need to draw on one? Probably not. Wouldn't it be better to know what we're drawing, to be able to plan ahead, to know what our opponent's drawing and plan ahead, right? So I kind of think that, like, I don't know exactly what deck this goes one or two copies in, but I believe someone will do it. And so that's where I think it is very appropriately costed for the effect that it has on the game long term. It's so cheap, it's so versatile. You can just ink it, I really like the card, and I'm just a staunch believer that there's going to be a one or two copies in some random deck that makes top 64 at one of these events, and we're going to go, wow, that was a cute inclusion.
Sure. I think it almost makes me want to run. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Like,
works with Bruno.
Works with Bruno for sure. Works with Magic Hat, like the Sorcerer's Hat, and all those things. Ursula's Cauldron.
Yep. This is the most lightweight combination card with Bruno that is in the game right now.
I think there are some other inclusions I could see you could see you running this with, like in Mufasa lists. Like, if you found the ability to run like a blue Fasa list, I think I could see it. Especially with cards that allow you to kind of kill your own cards on command. Like, I don't think it works that way. I was thinking down the rabbit hole banishes, but that's a whole nother, like...
That's another rabbit hole.
That's a whole other rabbit hole. Anyway, I could see it as niche. That's fine.
Yeah. Let's jump ahead to the Great Illuminary. Give me a rundown of this card.
Let me pull it up myself. The Great Illuminary, Radiant Ballroom. 3 cost, inkable. Cost 2 to move it there, 9 willpower. Characters with support gain +1 lore and +2 willpower while here. Costs a lot to move it there. Gets great defense and quests for a lot. this seems like the kind of card that they want you to play in like an all-out like go wide hero list, like with the Annas and with Phil, and because they gave you all these like hero tools that like they bolster each other, and they all now quest for a crap ton more. I don't know. It's kind of the same thing we talked about before, where it's really hard to get like a lot of cards on the board and like keep them there. And this isn't really something that is like it costs a lot to move something to this location, even / get it down. Like it just feels.
No, you don't have to make excuses for it. It's pretty
feels really uninteractive.
Yeah, well, it costs 3. And then it costs 2 to move there. And then the characters that do move there have to have support. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what are we doing here? The support strategies are not a thing, and yet they keep pushing support strategies. And it's like the best support strategy is just Alice. And that's where one card gives everything support. The cards that they've printed with support, by and large, have been awful. There's a couple exceptions. But like as a strategy, like it's just not good. And I could if this was 1 to move there, I could maybe see it. And it still would be rogue deck material. But the sort of the most insulting thing about this, really, besides the 2 to move there, is the fact that it gives more defense. Support cards don't need more defense. They need more attack. Like, there's how many, like, we can look, and the majority
the whole point of support cards.
Right. The majority of the characters that have support have a high defense, low attack. There's a handful of exceptions, just a handful. Right? So, like, if you were going to be like, Great Illuminary, 1 to move there, characters with support get +1 questing and +3 attack. Okay. I'll try that. I'll have me some of that. But this is awful. It's got to be binder fodder. And it sucks because it's such a pretty card. It plays to the Lorcana, like, lore. Not just, like, the established movie lore, but, like, the lore of the game. And it's awful.
Let me change the text in here. Every surface glows with disappointment.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, well, that, unfortunately...
This card just stays exactly where we put it.
Yeah.
Binder fodder.
All right, Gibby. Convince me that Badanon is not bad.
I will not. 3 cost to move there. 7 willpower, 1 lore. Villain characters gain exert, pay 3 to play a character with the same name as this character for free while here. What? Like, villain decks already struggle to like survive themselves or even be relevant. Like a full villain deck has to be villain characters. You have to play this for 3, move a character for 2 there, and then pay 3 and exert the character to play a character with the same name as the character for free while here.
You're basically paying 5 on 1 turn. 8 if you want to play this, then move it, then tap.
And have the card in your hand.
And you have to have the other card in your hand.
This card is... Badanon is such a cool like concept for like a location. No. This might be worse than the Illuminary stage thing we just went over. Like, it's just so bad.
Yeah, it's really tough, man. And
the Radiant Barn.
The only like weird scenario I can see is like you play it on 3, and then on turn 4 you're like, all right, let me move somebody over, like a Jafar. But then the ridiculous thing is you still can't tap it to like curve out, 7-drop Jafar on turn 4. It's not good. It's rough. It's real rough, guys. I think it stays in meme decks, binder fodder. I just don't see a world where you can get over the average cost to get value. Yes, it does collect 1 per turn. Maybe, you know what? you know what? Maybe there's a world where this lives in some sort of location deck, like with Sheriff of Nottingham, where you're just playing it because it's a location that is inkable that gets lore. Maybe. But that's not
I
what
think
this is
it's.
intended for.
I don't think. Yeah, it's not what it's intended for, and I think there are better options.
And it's not what we're going to judge it by. Let's talk about the Seven Dwarves Mine, the secure fortress. I'll go ahead and run through this last one we have here. 2-cost inkable moves for 2, and 6 willpower, and it collects 1. All right. During your turn, the first time you move a character here, that's important. Okay, so you can't do it multiple times per turn. But the first time you move a character here, you can deal 1 damage to chosen character. And if the moved character is a knight, deal 2 damage instead. All right. We received a ton of steel dwarves and Snow White, right? Like a bunch of them. 1 of each of the 7 dwarves and a Snow White, which are all in steel. This goes with that. It's clearly this sort of like pre-designed package, like they did with Amber, in Rise of the Floodborn, right? And obviously you can combo it with all those other dwarves, right? And so you can, have the Snow White that discounts all of your 7 dwarves, and now you can run what is 14 times 3? 28, 42. You can run 42 dwarves if you want. All of which will be discounted by your Snow White. That's cute. It's cute, right? And your little 7 dwarves mine, you can send them to the mine, and you can deal 2 damage when you send the knight ones to the mine. Not the ones that aren't knights, though. It has to be a knight. I think if this said whenever you move a 7 dwarf here, it would deal 2 damage instead of just 1. I might be a little higher on this. These like, the puppies, the puppy package, right? And before that, the 7 dwarves package, and like these like sort of semi pre-built things that they do, they almost never really develop into a meta list, right? Because they're usually pretty timid in designing powerful cards within those package. And this is sort of an example of a card that it's already like slow, right? In that like you have to move people there and you get 1 damage for the cost. I mean, Gibby, I don't know. I feel like it's C tier as well. I feel like I feel like it's just above the meme decks thing, although but then again, I guess because it collects 1 for the cost of 2. This is just like, I mean, talk about like power creeping Nottingham. You know what I mean? Like that's what this is. Like you power creep Nottingham, and Nottingham, I don't know. It was played in Pirates. I can't really say that that's that's a rogue deck, right? So maybe that's what this is.
This has more board interaction with your opponent, which is what I like. And even though it's like spaced out in moderation because you can only do it once per turn. The other thing that I'm interested to take a look at, and I have a feeling, is so if you structured the costing, like this doesn't cost additionally. The only reason that we're even considering this versus something like the ballroom that we just went over, the Illuminary Ballroom or Badanon, was because they stacked all of these costing requirements along with a specific tag to make it work. What did they do on this? They made it a little bit cheaper to play, a little bit cheaper to move something there. Well, I guess it's the same cost to move something there, but they made to play the location a little cheaper, and there's no cost requirement to trigger the effect once it's there. Right. That's the only reason I think we're even considering that this is like possibly playable. I think maybe what's something we're not considering is that the knight category is a little bit bigger and has more existing cards in it that we're not thinking about outside of the dwarves because they've been released. Like I can see a world where you play the prince on 3, play this on 4, move the prince, you play it for 2, move the prince there on 2, and it's a bodyguard to protect maybe something you've played on 1 or played on 2. Like if you played the Cinderella knight in training on 2 or something
Sure.
like that to try to help you get to bigger units. I think there is a world where you can play this because the knight category just has better units and it's not as a costly location. I'm agree that this is C tier, but I think there is a more relevant path to where this actually works as a location than maybe some of the other more costly ones that we just are like, this just costs too much to work around.
So, man, this is funny. So while you were talking about that, you kind of moved me in a weird direction, which is originally I viewed the card as sort of trying to be a payoff for a pre-built sort of, Snow White and the Seven Dwarves thing. And in that role, it's not good enough. The payoff isn't good enough for playing all these dwarves, right?
And I don't want to
But
play the dwarves with this. I want to play other knights.
well, interesting. So you made that point, which I agree with. And then that made me evolve the discussion sort of further in my brain of like, what if you don't care even about the knights part?
Just the damage.
What if this is your setup for all of the green steel ping stuff? Like you play this for 2. In that green steel deck, you're trying to ping stuff and execute it with efficient inkable plays. The problem with green steel in the past has been the majority of ways that you put ping damage on things are either underpowered or uninkable.
Or already requires it to be damaged.
Well, that's in green. I'm talking about like because you typically would go like steel to put a damage, and then green to do something like to finish it, right?
Mm.
And there's no green card that just puts a damage on something that isn't already damaged. Not a single one. I looked. That's why you need something like steel or ruby potentially, like with a teeth and ambitions or a rush character or something. So the interesting thing about this would be maybe you're doing things like playing this with the hyenas, right? And you're being like, oh, I'm going to play a hyena on 3, and then on 4, I'm going to drop this. I'm going to move the hyena to it. I'm going to ping the damage on it. And now you can't challenge it. Or now my hyena can, I can't remember what all of them do off the top of my head, but they do things around when things are damaged, right? Maybe that's what this is. Like, you play this as an inkable solution alongside things like Tinkerbell. You probably play like Grab Your Swords, right? But in this sort of ping control deck with green steel that they've been pushing so hard for so long, maybe this is a part of that. Maybe this. So my point is, maybe this goes up to niche meta usage, like just for like the minimum level of effectiveness,
Yeah, I mean, you've also still got that whole green, like you've got the ability to do like because I think he's also considered a knight. I'd have to look, or maybe he's just a hero. But even if you can find overlap between your knights and your heroes, like you've got the ability to protect them with the 4-drop Prince, which I love that card. I think that card is better than people give it credit for. And then the ability to
right?
Yeah, and the ability to shift him in and later turns,
right?
To then just board wipe is great, but you're giving everything ward in the meantime. So I had a very relevant rogue deck last meta that I built that just didn't do early on. We hadn't identified the whole Bucky deck thing to be like the boogeyman deck. So, but I was struggling against that deck, so I kind of abandoned the idea, but it was faring relatively well against everything else. And I wonder if that makes a return here. Is the ward hero setup deck but with ping, and this would be a great complement to it.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of what are we okay with putting it niche meta usage?
I think so, because I don't think you run 4 copies of it, but I think it's good. I think it could be a solid opener.
Why not? So anyways, folks, there you have it. Our location tier list, too soon tier list for Shimmering Skies, which of course will release, I believe on the 9th of August. And I cannot wait to get my hands on this. Stay tuned, follow the channel so you can see all of the new content we're going to be posting out for it, but from more tier lists to gameplay to some deck discussion videos. And Gibby and I are going to be putting together 15 new decks for you to try out on day 1 of Shimmering Skies. Stay tuned. We hope to see you there, and jump in the Discord if you want to chat about this tier list or any of the other content we've been making. We will see you on the next one.